we'll just I'd like to open the ordinary meeting at 9:07 a.m. and thank you, councillors, for your attendance and good morning. We'll just adjourn the meeting. We'll keep going with the meeting. 11:01. Do we have a mover on the minutes? Councillor Edwards.
Right here. I'll move that the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on 14th July 2021 be confirmed.
Okay. Just check that. We got a copy of those. Would you mind if we do the other minutes first?
No, that's fine. I'll move that the minutes of the special meeting held over 2 days, being 21st July 2021 and 27th July 2021, be confirmed.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Burkett, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0.
The other one.
Does anyone have a copy of
We had
those?
them yesterday.
Yeah, it was given to you yesterday, like all printed. We all got a printed copy. in
Printed
here.
copy, yes, sir.
We'll just adjourn for 5 minutes. Do we have anyone to confirm the minutes of the 14th of July 2021? Councillor McMullen.
Mr Mayor, I'll move that the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 14th of July 2021 be confirmed.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Taylor. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Are we going to pause to receive documents, or they wouldn't be ready yet?
Let's get stuck into this.
There was word that we're going to, but we'll go with this.
No, I think CEO said to start on this, didn't we? Until they're ready.
Righto. No, I just remember earlier.
I don't think they're ready.
Right, okay. Righto, so we'll get on with the agenda.
Yes, please. Page 3.
Thank you. Wallumbilla pool lease.
Mr Mayor, can I declare a conflict, please? Sure. I'd like to advise that I have a declaration of interest with regard to item number 13.1. The description is the Wallumbilla pool lease. The declaring councillor is myself, Councillor Joy Guthrie. The person with the interest or the related party or the close associate or the other relationship is Wallumbilla State School. Particulars of the interest is I've accepted a short-term relieving position as acting principal at Wallumbilla State School, and the Wallumbilla State School is directly mentioned in the report. The type of conflict is a declarable conflict of interest, and my intention is to leave the room while the matter is discussed and voted on.
Okay, Councillor Guthrie is leaving the room and has left the room. Do we have any questions on this one?
I do, if you don't mind.
Please go ahead, Councillor
Manager
Taylor.
Tenure, just a question with that funding of $18,000 contribution to the sinking fund. Is that our fund or is that the government's, the Queensland government?
Through you, Mr Mayor, it is a joint fund. Council pays that allocation annually to the Wallumbilla State School. It's then held for purposes that needs to be decided upon between council and the Wallumbilla School in regards to works at the pool.
Okay. So we actually pay them $18,000 a year for the lease of the pool? Is that how that means? What you mean?
Yeah, it's called a sinking fund, so it goes into, I guess, a bucket of money that's then used to pay for stuff like chemicals. It can also be used for other costs if there's something that needs upgrading at the pool. But
So
those,
we don't normally pay for the chemicals
no, it gets paid for by the pool, by the school,
by the school?
out of the sinking fund.
Okay, we just pay for the person that runs
We
it.
pay the management fees, yes.
Okay, thank you.
We have a mover, Councillor Hancock.
I move that Council 1 advise the State of Queensland, represented by the Department of Education, that Council intends to exercise the final 5-year option in the Wallumbilla swimming pool lease. 2, authorise the Chief Executive Officer or delegate to execute documentation required to formalise the extension of the lease.
We have a seconder? Councillor O'Neill. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0. Item 13.2, page 7, payment to Queensland Local Government Mutual, annual asset insurance payment. Councillor McMullen.
Mr Mayor, I'll move. I don't think it's anything different, is it? Council authorise payment to Queensland Local Government Mutual Assets totalling $1,179,965.97, GST inclusive, being payment for property protection, ISR, motor vehicle, engineering, machinery breakdown, personal accident group, personal accident volunteers, voluntary workers, marine hull commercial and marine operators liability insurances. 2, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to raise a purchase order with the expenditure assigned to the 2021-22 budget allocation for associated assurance. 3, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to complete future payments invoiced by local government mutual assets in accordance with budget approvals.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Ladbrook. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Page 90. Item 13.3, tender 21033, approved contractor list for provision of building certification services. I've got a question. Does that mean, so is this one where everyone would be on the list, would it?
Correct.
Yep, right. And just choice of who you use, sort of.
And it is short-term stuff. We obviously have a staff member that's currently studying, and obviously we have the arrangement there with Steve Meisen, but Steve retires come September. While Steve signs off on their documentation, Scotty obviously does a lot of legwork. With Steve's retirement, this will allow us to continue that process there until Scotty has completed his studies. And by having 3 on the panel there too, sometimes you don't want to be certifying your own work. So if one of the people on the panel has done the design or the plans, we can use someone else. And obviously we've had probably triple the amount of building approvals in the last 12 months, so it's quite a high workload, so I'll be able to share it across the 3. So.
Right, okay, thank you. Councillor Burkett,
I'm happy to move it.
please go ahead.
I'd like to move that 1, council approve the formation of the approved contractor list for the provision of building certification services in accordance with S231 of the Local Government Regulation 2012. 2, pre-qualification for the business listed below remain current until the 31st of August 2024. And 3, council authorise the Chief Executive Officer or delegate to enter into a deed of agreement with each selected tenderer for building certification services, formalising the terms and conditions detailed in the draft agreement. Item 4.
There was one.
It's got 4 written on the book.
Yeah, there's nothing there.
Nothing there?
The name's
Are you
read out.
looking
or
at
people?
this now?
No, it says just listed below. The business is listed below. It's open, so
It is in open.
Oh, so it's open section in the agenda so people can see.
I'm
Yes.
happy to read it, but we haven't in the past.
No, it's in open.
Righto. Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Edwards, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0.
leaves me more room to speak.
Understand.
L1, addition to road register unnamed road off Iona, Bardlomey Road. Councillor Guthrie.
Mayor, I have another conflict of interest. The item number is L1, the addition to the road register unnamed road off Iona Bardley Road. Declaring Councillor Julie Guthrie, person with the entity that is the related party is Wallumbilla State School. We accepted a short-term relieving position as acting principal at Wallumbilla State School. The Wallumbilla State School is indirectly mentioned in the report through reference to the children attending the school and also catching the school bus from this particular road. The type of conflict is a declarable conflict of interest, and I'll leave the room while the matter is discussed and voted on.
Okay. Any other conflicts, councillors? Righto. Do we have any questions, or do we have any information, or do we have a mover?
I'll move, Mr Mayor.
Councillor McMullen.
Mr Mayor, I'll move that Council 1 endorse the addition of the unnamed section of road off Iona Bardlomey Road onto the Council's road register with the classification of rural access secondary and a length of 5.060 kilometres. 2, undertake community engagement with residents that directly adjoin the unnamed section of road off Iona Bardlomey Road to gauge their input on the potential road naming of the section of road as outlined in item 1 of this resolution. 3, be presented with a subsequent report detailing the outcome from the community engagement with the residents with the view of formally naming and adding this section of road to the road register.
We have a seconder. Councillor Taylor. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0. Yes, please.
Page 20, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Page 20. L.2 Change Representations. Do we have any, what, is there a, entity here that we're dealing with, or is it council or?
Mr Mayor, this is St John's School.
Oh, that's right.
Development application.
Yeah, gotcha, for the car park.
Yes, yep.
Any questions?
Just wondering if there's anything we should know. Is it just about the car parks?
Through you, Mr Mayor, it's pretty straightforward, a very minor change to the development approval to construct the car park in 2 stages rather than 1.
Okay, do we have a mover?
I've just got a question, if I can. When did we first approve the development?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I think it was March this year it was approved, a couple of months ago.
Okay, do we have any movers? I'd like to move that council give a negotiated decision notice to the applicant that states the council agrees to the following changes to decision notice 2020/20219. Stage development. The approved development is permitted to occur.
Dismissed.
Change condition 2.
From.
Okay, so I'll start again. That give a negotiated decision notice to the applicant that states that council agrees to the following changes to decision notice 2020/20219. Change condition 2 from stage development. 1, the approved development is permitted to occur over the following 3 stages. Stage 1, educational establishment car park, including 59 on-site sealed car parks, a drop-off zone, additional access points, and in brackets, two-way access from Duke Street and left in, left out across, left in, left out access from Bowen Street. Pedestrian crossing upgrades and landscaping. Stage 1 works are generally shown as Stage 1 on the approved drawings A.000 and A.060.
Mayor, can I just
Yep.
ask, are you planning on moving anything contrary to what's in the report?
No.
Well, just to save yourself a bit of oxygen, there's 3 pages of these changes that are in open.
Yep.
So that people can see them.
Yeah, so, as far as, yeah, so, what do I need to say?
The officers' report, so,
Yeah. Just not receive the report.
No, we've got to approve.
yeah, approve, subject, I'll move the officers' report.
So how much wording do we need? Do we have any out of the 3 pages?
I have a suggestion. Give a negotiated decision notice to the applicant that states that council agrees to the following changes to decision notice that, as listed below.
Righto.
But just making sure that's,
Are you happy with that?
Yes.
Righto.
The officers' report, that's right.
I'll change what I'm going to move to just the top part and then as listed below. So we'd be able to put that, yeah. So I'll move that council give a negotiated decision notice to the applicant that states that council agrees to the following changes to decision notice 2020/20219 as listed below. So you happy with that, Manager? Now, do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Hancock. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Okay, moving on to L3, page 30. L3, Injune Hall RSL rooms. Councillor Guthrie.
I'd like to move that Council 1 agree to the request from the RSL Injune sub-branch for exclusive use of the RSL room in the Injune Memorial Hall. 2, enter a 3-year trustee permit with the RSL Injune sub-branch in regard to the Injune RSL room and authorise the Council's Chief Executive Officer to execute the agreement and any other associated documentation. 3, permit the RSL Injune sub-branch to install IT hardware in the RSL room, including electrical fittings, NBN internet and video conferencing capability, with works to be undertaken in consultation with the Council's Facilities, Land, Buildings and Structures Department. 4, approve the RSL Injune sub-branch's request to install signage, RSL badge plaque, on the external entrance door to the room and the lettering RSL, and a wall-mounted 45-degree adjustable flagpole on the external east-facing wall of the building between the windows and the guttering downpipe nearest to the stairs at the front of the building, with works to be undertaken in consultation with the Council's Facilities, Land, Buildings and Structures Department. And 5, explore opportunities for an alternative meeting and training room to be developed in Injune with a report to be presented at a future council meeting.
Okay, do you have a question, Councillor Hancock? Please go ahead.
through you, Mr Mayor, Manager Tanya. Just noting in the report that there is other users that do use that meeting room, and some of them have no plans just yet of, I guess, where they would go if we do this. When are we? Is this going to be as at this date, or is this going to as at today's meeting date, or are we going to give a bit of time to do number 5, to explore the opportunities and to bring that back to council? Obviously, I have a concern there.
Yep.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I understand that the RSL has been in discussions with the bigger RSL organisation in regard to undertaking an IT upgrade of that space. So they'll be looking for exclusive use of that space pretty well straight away so that upgrade can happen. The major users of that space at the moment are Chips, who we've already had a conversation with, and the other user is the Injune, Advanced Injune Group. We have not yet had a conversation with them, but I do understand that their last meetings were held at the men's shed facility.
So, through you, Mr Mayor, with the conversation with Chips, like I noted in the report that they, like, what has that conversation, what is the outcome, where will they go if they can't use that room?
At the moment, Chips are also using what used to be the old Bungleshire Council offices within the hall. They have exclusive use of that space. Chips are supportive of the RSL having exclusive use of that room, and there are similar executive on both committees, so they are aware of what's being planned.
I just wonder whether the mover would be, and if it's appropriate, I would like to think that we notify those groups before they find out through somebody else, and I guess put that offer out to be able to find other spaces for them.
Yeah.
I know that we're going to explore the options and come back, but how would you see that process happening anyway, Manager Tanya?
Through you, Mr Mayor, how I probably foresee the future report happening is looking at what alternative spaces there are in Injune for meetings. At the moment, we do have the hall and supper room, which is available now. The issue is more about actually setting up the council IT equipment that's been put in those RSL rooms for use by council staff for training. So we'll need to look at other options. One is the room, the old Bungleshire Council rooms that Chips currently have. Chips have given an indication that until the museum's built and they can actually physically see that space and how it would work for them, they won't give a commitment that they'll move out of the old bungle rooms. The other option is the old Visitor Information Centre, and there'll need to be a discussion held with the groups that are currently have items stored in there and occasionally use those spaces to see whether or not there's an option for a meeting space to be developed in there. There'll also need to be some consultation with Council's IT team to see how either of those spaces will work in terms of setting up equipment.
Councillor McMullen?
Just through you, Mr Mayor, it's my understanding that is the RSL room. It's been the RSL room forever and a day, just that they all but folded and other people started using it. So that makes it a little bit. I understand what you're saying, but yeah.
I guess my major concern is that would we be notifying those two groups that use that room before they ring up to book it and have been told by customer service that they can no longer book that room?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, that would be something that we would do. And there are future bookings as well, so we'll have to talk to them about that and helping them find alternative locations for any future bookings.
Thank you.
Okay, so does Councillor Guthrie want to change her motion, or are you happy as it is?
I'm just thinking that as I listened to the comment made by Manager Tanya, I think that they've got it under control. I think it's fine to stand like this here.
Well, I'm happy to second that motion if you don't want to change it. Does anyone else, any opposition to the motion? Does the move wish to speak to the motion?
I just want to draw everyone's attention. I think it's a pertinent aspect. This memorial hall was actually built as the RSL hall using RSL monies many years gone by, and it was in the latter part of I think it was about, well, I won't give a date, but it was actually then given to the Bungleshire Council, and they retained the room. So it's a sense of continuity and enabling the RSL to continue, particularly now in this technological age with all this connectivity being offered through RSL Queensland. I think it's a positive step.
Does anyone else wish to speak against or for the motion? I'll certainly speak. I do understand it's the RSL hall. And I think this is a small thing if council decide to do this. I do notice in the report there is other areas that are being used already and can be used. And there's a close connection with the different groups, so I don't believe this is going to be a problem. But I do think it's important for RSL to have a home, and I certainly support the motion. Okay, does anyone else wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Thank you. Item L4, security cameras to reduce crime outside the CBD. I'd like to move that a report be prepared for an upcoming council meeting. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Edwards. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak?
Mr. I'm just going to say, Manager Rubin's there. If you want, did he have any comments? I mean, any info?
So this is about outside the CBD? Yeah.
Yeah, probably like to put out there, potentially looking at, definitely I think it's something we need to be looking at there, but is it something that we would probably, especially when we're talking residential areas, is it something that more of a council initiative, is something that we look at engaging with the QPS to give a less support for the QPS to actually apply for, with our assistance, the funding application for the residential area, for that way that those cameras then can be then managed by, especially in the residential area, by the QPS, which means that direct access for the intent of reducing crime and for prosecution be sitting with the police rather than with council, especially in those residential areas. So that's probably something that probably like to put in as part of us coming back with recommendations for this.
Yeah, so,
Could I add to?
yeah,
Could I add to that,
Please.
Mr Mayor? So
Please
we've got
go
a
ahead.
report later on in the day rescinding the motion that you put 2 weeks ago. Where you questioned at the time whether the funding application we're going to put into safer communities would be flexible enough to expand the project out into residential areas. You're quite right. It was, and reading the guidelines, inflexible. And we've identified another fund, which is due on the 27th of
There's
August.
probably some conflicts in the REM one,
Yeah.
so probably
Okay, so I won't say any more about it. However, that in doing our research, Ruben's spoken to other councils and LGAQ particularly about the risks associated with residential areas, and what they're saying is that the Queensland Police are protected to a degree with these security matters, and maybe it might be a good idea to have talk to them and potentially joint venture with that service. And we were going to ask council whether we could be released to just have a conversation with the QPS, which may bring about a resolution to all your risk management issues, which I'm sure Ruben's trying to deal with, and this funding application we're trying to put through. That's what I want to add.
okay, thank you for that. Just to clarify, what this is about is actually going out to the community and asking where the crime is that the community members are actually dealing with. And some of the feedback is that the police don't have that information because they may not be called about it. So there is a little bit of a disconnect in the community about being able to deal with the crime. So this would actually be about giving people have their say on where the crime is in different ways and come back with a map that obviously then we can look at other stakeholders, but this would be talking directly to our people that are actually outside the CBD that are dealing with crime issues and where they say it would be. Because if people don't report it or don't feel there's any point in reporting it, which is not the right thing to do, then that detail is not captured by the police. Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder. Is there any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? I certainly do. I certainly talk to many community members and they're frustrated about what is happening in our communities, and this is an opportunity to hear directly from the people that are living with these problems outside the CBD. And getting their direct feedback, I think, will only be beneficial when we look, whatever model we look at, being able to solve this problem with security cameras in public places. Okay, no one else wish to speak? Councillor Burkett?
I just had a question. There you go.
I just think it is a good initiative too, and I think just what we heard, I think down the track, once we get this in place, to liaise with the Queensland Police, because I think between the two correlating both lots of information, I think it'll be a benefit for all areas of the community, whether how far out of the CBD, but I think it's a great step forward.
Councillor O'Neill?
Mine's more a question. This just, to me, looking at the body of what you've presented, Mayor, a report's going to come back with a comms plan on how to engage with the community on the topic of cameras outside the CBD, and so I just that what both managers shared with us earlier about engaging with stakeholders, i.e. QPA, that's just going to happen surely as part of a report coming back to council. I mean, we're going to have to know how best to engage with the community. We know how to engage with the community, that's in here, but what do we share with the community and what outcomes we want? Just simply asking if do you want, where is a crime and do you want a camera? There may be a myriad of other things that we should be asking in the same consultation. So this is all that is. It's just a report coming back illustrating how, or documenting how we're going to consult, isn't it?
Well, what I'm moving on is getting a report to be able to go out to have your say, dealing directly with the people about the crime issues, getting a report on the crime issues that they would like to tell council about, and the areas of our community that are suffering from those crime areas.
So a comms plan's going to come back of how to engage.
But I'm not putting forward we talk to any other stakeholders. I'm talking about a direct communication with the residents of the Maranoa, and then get that information back and then have it back in a report to council. Okay, does anyone else wish to speak?
Just one question,
Please go ahead,
what you just
Councillor
said.
Hancock.
So obviously part of that report would be, if it's how we're going to engage with the community, a bit of a risk assessment on what do we do if we get information that should be passed on. Like we might be, and I'm not against it, I think it's about communication, but I guess that risk management of what do we do if we or our staff are provided with information that needs to be passed on to the police is all on.
Yeah, no, that's fine, and that's part of the report on when we're getting ready to deal with have your say and what questions we ask. That will be part of it, is to get that back. Okay, does anyone else wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0.
No, and against?
Sorry. All those in favour? All those against? 8-1 if I can call for a division. Okay, moving on to L5. Page 41. Monthly financial report as at the 30th of June 2021. I would like to move that a preliminary monthly financial report for the period ending 30th of June 2021 be received and noted. Point 2, that in all future monthly financial reports, the borrowings of council as a net amount are detailed in the report.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. On page 45, was that, talks about loans there, was that what you were after, the QTC loans?
It's in the report.
That's what you've asked, we've done that resolution before.
You resolved that at the last meeting.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Also, Rob, is there other debt? Any other debt?
No, I'd have to probably check with Cindy there, but as far as I'm aware, it's actually all your consolidated loans on page 45.
Yeah, I noticed that one, but I was just wondering about any other debt.
Not far as I'm aware. You said have to take it on notice there,
Okay,
as
thank you.
obviously Sharon and Director Sharon and Cindy are preparing the budget
No, that's
things
fine.
this afternoon,
Thanks,
but,
Rob.
Yeah. I was actually talking about having it as a separate, not just in the body of the report in the table, but also just as a single figure for people to read, is what I'm actually talking about. So, yeah, I note it is on page 45 under QTC loans, but it's not clearly marked somewhere that I think if people were having a skim over it that they would see. So I might clarify that as in the table as a single readable, not in the table, as a single readable figure in the report.
Excuse me, Mr Mayor, what do you mean by net debt? Which is total debt?
Yeah, total
Just debt,
total borrowings.
total borrowings.
Yeah, and if it needs to be broken up, I'm happy with that. Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Edwards, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it or against? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Righto, moving on. L6, page 50. Request for reduced trading terms. Councillor Taylor,
I'm happy to move it if you're.
please go ahead.
The council approved the requested reduction in trading terms from 28 days to 14 days for any invoices submitted by creditor 15678.
We have a seconder, Councillor Ladbrook. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Page 54. L7 Extension to contract for Aviation Security Screening at Roma Airport. Councillor O'Neill.
I move that council approve the final 12-month contract extension with MSS Security and call tenders for security screening services at the Roma Airport in February of 2022.
I've got a question. In regards to if there is a change in the airport with the regulated route and so forth, yeah, what do we, should we be doing this, or could we be going month to month with it, or every 3 months or something?
Probably it's a 12-month extension there. I hope we're in a position by February next year anyway to make that call on the actual, obviously calling for the tender of the actual security anyway. So I think the officer's recommendation there, go for the next 12 months, lock them in. But obviously come February when we go to call it, we'll probably be in a better position to know the decision's been made on who the regulated carrier is. So.
So is the change in the regulated route not for another 12 months?
The decision will be.
When you mean a change in the there's no change in the
Well,
regulator.
like if there is a change, hypothetically, like
In
if
the
there's
provider.
in the operator,
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
like have we locked ourselves in where we could have and I'm not saying there is going to be, no one knows, but what I'm saying is, do we lock it in and find that there could be a change and we've just, put an extra 6 months in when we don't really know?
look, I'd say if you go to lock it in for the next 12 months, Mr. Mayor, you'll know in February which way it's going to go, even if it is, if there was a change in the regulator route and you had a different carrier and had different requirements for your screening, you would still probably continue to do it anyway whilst you sorted out what you're going to do with that equipment as well. So, as I said, if you lock it in for the next 12 months, I said by come February, council will be in a better position to know whether we proceed with actually calling of the next tender or not. But at least you're definitely covered for that sort of period. So I think month to month, in the current contract, they've got 2 options in there for renewal for a 12-month period. I think we just go with what's in the contract there. And then come February, as you said, we'll be better placed to know which way we go forward then.
I suppose my question, and whether we should lay it on the table later in the meeting, is when do we know when the regulated route change is, or when's the next
When's the-
7 years?
When's the decision made?
No. When does it take effect?
The new contract.
The new contract.
So when the decision's made and when it's.
Well, it's not so much when the decision, it could be made in 3 months, but when does...
The new contract will
New
start.
contract, because really, we have, there could be a change, as in the requirements for screening.
Yeah.
And I think due diligence would say that we need to know when that date is. Maybe no one knows when that date is,
Mayor, I'll move, we lay this on the table until later in the meeting, and I'm sure through Director Rob, a conversation will be had with the Department of Transport.
Righto. All those in favour? 9-0. L.8 Tender 21040 Aggregate Crushing Campaign at Roma Quarry. Councillor Edwards.
I'll move it. Okay. I'd like to move that, just waiting for all of it. I'd like to move that Council 1 select Glen Dunn Group Proprietary Limited as the recommended tenderer to undertake the crushing campaign at the Roma Quarry for the price of $764,713.43, including GST. 2, Council authorises the Chief Executive Officer or delegate to enter into final negotiations with Glen Dunn Group Proprietary Limited, formalising the terms and conditions of the draft agreement.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Burkett. Did you, Councillor Edwards, you read out point 1 and point 2?
Yeah, I don't think I mightn't have mentioned. Yeah, no, I did. Yeah, that's right.
All of it? Yep.
Yep.
Okay, Councillor Taylor,
I have a question. if you
please
don't
go
mind,
ahead.
To the officer. Were they the only ones that tendered?
There's
Don't
page
we
5.
use-
61.
A few others.
They ran to all of
But we didn't see what their tenders were. We don't get to
The
see.
tender values you're talking about?
Yeah.
No, they are available in, I can get those values.
Don't we usually see them?
Not the public.
Oh, not in open, sorry. Yeah, okay, sorry.
If it was a closed,
Yeah.
we'd have them in the body of the report.
So what's the difference? Why is it in open then?
Not allowed to give out the tender, it's only the winning tender.
So why isn't it enclosed so we can see it? That's my
Well, the New
question.
legislation. I
Okay.
think that's my understanding, but it comes in the new legislation.
But however, yeah, that's the idea. I think the state government is trying to make it more open. However, if you think it's a concern in making a decision, then we should lay this on the table and get that information for you. So,
I think I'd like to see the tenders, if you don't mind.
okay.
Councillors, and we can pull that for you. They were the cheapest tender, I can tell you that though as well, so.
Yeah, I'd just like to see it if you don't mind.
Okay, I move we lay this on the table till later in the meeting. All those in favour? 9-0. Okay, moving on to L9. Request to set up a pop-up stall. Councillor Taylor.
There. Here it is. Declaration of interest on L9, request to set up a pop-up stall. The declaring council is myself, Wendy Taylor. The person with interest related party is a close associate, Loretta Thomas of Horsetalk. Particulars of interest, Loretta has a lease over my premises at 49 Quentin Street, Roma. It is a declarable conflict of interest and I'll leave, 47, sorry. And I'll leave the room while the matter is discussed and voted on.
I might declare a conflict too on this one, Cal. I'd like to declare a conflict on L9, request to set up a pop-up stall. And then the person with the interest or the related party, I don't know. The related party may be a retail store that I am a part owner of, Golders. Put Golders down there. And the particular of the interest is that there may be similar items sold and so forth. And then the type of conflict. I'll go with declarable conflict of interest. And I will be, the action is I'll leave the room while the matter is discussed and voted on.
So forth, mean.
Similar items being sold, similar items sold, Mr Mayor, is probably,
Yeah,
I think it covers, as you said, there are similar items
I
sold.
don't know what they're doing, but it could be similar items and could be other things. I don't know.
And the related parties may be a retail store or it is a
Before we
retail
leave the room, just to tidy that one up, just so related. So it would just be part owner of Golders, that would be your,
Yeah,
Person
we
we
can
just
take
said.
out maybe.
partner of Golders. And there may be similar items sold.
Yeah.
Happy with that?
Okay. Both Councillor Taylor and the Mayor have left the room. Subject heading, L9, subject heading, request to set up a pop-up stall. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Ladbroke.
I'd like to move that council.
I've got questions too.
Well, move the motion
Okay.
and then we'll ask for questions.
I'd like to move that council approve a request for set up of commercial pop-up stall at the Roma Sale Yards in accordance with the hire of Roma Sale Yards policy and the following conditions. Condition 1, the land be used by the applicant only for the setup of a pop-up stall at Roma Sale Yards. And 2, the frequency of the condition to 1 day, Tuesday each week. And 3, a pop-up stall is to be set up in the open undercover area adjacent to the canteen and must not obstruct walkways, verandas or access points. And 4, council has the ability to revoke this approval at any time by written notice. And 5, the applicant must retain public liability insurance of $20 million for the duration of the approval. for which council is to retain a copy of such documents. And 6, the duration of the approval is from the 3rd of August 2021 and including Tuesday, the 28th of September 2021. And item 7, the hours of operating will be permitted between 8 a.m. and 2 p.m.
Okay, we had some questions, councillor
You
O'Neill.
might just want to clarify 6. You didn't say up to and including.
Okay, we'll read that out again.
Yes, please.
Item 6, the duration of this approval is from Tuesday, the 3rd of August 2021 up to and including Tuesday, the 28th of September 2021.
Okay. Did you have a question, councillor?
Yeah, through you, Chair. Paul, is the best place as listed, like it says it can't obstruct walkways and whatnot, but adjacent to the canteen is that open space, which is quite a thoroughfare, isn't it?
Go on,
Through you, Chair. Yeah, it is. Pretty much everybody comes through there, but it's probably the biggest area we've got that's undercover for them. Pretty much with the Queensland Health and that, when they were there, they actually set up against near the exit of the interpretive centre against that wall, and that's where we're looking at putting them.
No, the thoroughfare wasn't
No.
impeded or anything? Okay.
No.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Hancock, you had a question?
Yeah, I do. It seems the letter that's attached to the report on my page is blank. So just wanting to ask 2 questions. My first one is that the duration approval that we've given them, is that what they asked for? I'm assuming that might have been in the letter, but it's...
Yep. So in there, through you, Mr. Chair, in their thing, they asked for it to be ongoing annually. So we would be extremely interested in hosting a pop-up style stall at the Roma Yards during the peak tourist season between April to September annually, offering a range of merchandise that promotes the local area in Roma Yards. So we've based the recommendation on the timeframes they've recommended, except we've limited to this year and thought, well, if they want to go again next year, if it's beneficial, they reapply.
Sure, okay. I have another question.
Yes, go for
My
it.
second question is this the first time that a pop-up store has applied for council to operate there, other than Queensland Health or a mental health day that council has done, like just an individual business pop-up store?
Through you, Chair, yes, it is. Since the policy's been adopted, and that's the first commercial pop-up stall to request to set up there.
When was the policy adopted? What date? Was that this year?
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
Through you.
Yeah, Mr.
Chair,
Councillor.
Paul, so what governs this? Is it a document of some nature, is it, or what, is it a lease or a commercial pop-up agreement, or?
So through you, Mr. Chair, it would fall into the hire of Roma Yards,
Okay.
the application plus all the conditions based in there around signed document by them for hiring the sale yards. They must also have their indemnities in place for queue fever and everything like that.
Yep. Righto, thanks, Paul.
Any further questions? Okay, do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Hancock? Is there any opposition to the motion? Anyone wish to speak for or against? Or okay, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? 7-0. Thanks, Paul.
Okay, what page number are we up to, please?
9.
Can we put that air conditioner on? It seems a bit cool. Hot, I should say.
change, isn't it?
L10, funding application Safer Communities Fund, round 6, infrastructure grants. And this is the one that I've got a conflict, and I've already declared it, so I don't just need to declare I'm leaving the room.
So, Mr Mayor, I also have already previously declared a conflict with this, so I'll be leaving the room as well.
Righto, okay, thank you. Yeah, did you have a conflict too?
I don't know.
I didn't declare one.
No, but
Last week.
Oh, from last time.
No, you don't need to, you just need to say that you
I
leave.
can't remember, but I think I did, yeah.
Councillor Ladbroke, you just got to say you're leaving the room as well, because you declared it previously and leaving the room, so.
Okay.
Because, yeah, it only left the 5 of us, didn't it? Yeah.
You're right.
Elvis is leaving the room.
I'll be leaving the room because I've declared it previously.
No fun in you.
There's no Elvis there.
We've still got a quorum, so okay. Okay, Councillor Hancock, Councillor Edwards, Councillor Ladbroke and the Mayor have left the room with conflicts. Councillor O'Neill?
I'll move that council amend resolution number OM/07.2021, so it's 3.5 to read as follows. 1, allocate $10,000 from work order 19808 towards the preparation of a scoping document to support the funding application, outlining the security infrastructure required for the identified locations as tabled, mobile, CCTV solutions and other supporting ICT infrastructure. 2, submit an application to the Resource Communities Infrastructure Fund for the Maranoa Community Safety CCTV pilot project for up to $500,000. 3, provide a maximum of $100,000 as a co-contribution or at least 20% of the estimated project costs if final cost estimates are less than $500,000. 4, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to sign and submit the application by close of business on the 5th of August 2021.
We have a second to Councillor Taylor. Is it?
Chair, the manager.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
go for it.
The report is about amending that resolution.
That's what,
Yeah, so what councillor O'Neill's just read out is the original resolution.
that's what I thought. We need to read, probably need to read the new one, will we?
So just underneath that, councillor O'Neill on the report, it says the original resolution and you read out that council, etc. And then the recommendation underneath that is the new resolution.
Well, I beg your pardon, what I've just read is that. So if that's not correct,
5th of August. Well, it isn't correct. You're correct, and so I stand corrected. It's the 27th of August.
It's
Is
only
the
a name
deadline
change
for
of
that
the
fund.
funding.
so is it a date change?
Date
Name
change.
change of the funding.
It's,
Okay.
the name change is right, but the date that it's due is the 27th of August.
The close of business on the 27th of August.
Thank you so much, Mr.
righto.
O'Neill.
So, Chair, 4 should read, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to sign and submit the application by close of business on the 27th of August 2021.
No worries, everything's okay. No,
May I
go for it,
seek
yeah.
leave of council
Yeah.
to add another dimension to this? The Mayor did raise that question around the fund being flexible enough to take in residential areas. Probably not. But we found this fund, and council needs to consider that this will probably come to you from another officer in council seeking other projects to put up to this particular fund because it's a very useful one to council. There's a dimension to this which has come to light in Ruben's research since we met 2 weeks ago, and I'll just get Ruben to talk about that, is around the risk management associated with taking this project to the residential areas and potentially bringing in a partner to this.
Yeah, so as we touched on before, it was probably beyond reaching out to the LGAQ, and some other councils have already implemented security cameras across the area, and some of the challenges that were faced there is that it's probably been, for the residential areas, councils typically have avoided cameras directly in there, and it's probably more of a collaboration with the QPS to take on that as they have a lot more powers and control in that area around the intent, what we're wanting to use them for in the residential area. So what we'll be looking at with this application is still going forward with doing the CBD in those nominated areas. That was in the original outline or scope for the pilot project. But if we're wanting to include the flexibility of residential areas, then we really need to look at changing this the funding allocation to ensure a bit more success around being applicable.
Yeah, Councillor
Can I just
Guthrie?
ask, Ruben, so what you're really saying is that if we leave it at just CBD, we've got a much better chance of being successful for the funding?
Not for that previous funding for the safe what was the previous funding name? It was the Yep. It was a bit more focused around the deterrent of it was racial and religious persecution. It was very hard.
School zones.
Yeah, so some of that around the school zones in those areas, so probably be harder to probably look at that in the residential areas to meet those guidelines. Whereas the funding we're wanting to switch over to will probably allow us to have that flexibility to put it in a more location because it's more around community safety rather than those specifics.
So what we're asking, and maybe a consideration of resolution, is that the council releases us to speak to external agencies like QPS with the potential of actually including them as a project partner, which would add a lot of weight.
Yeah, I agree.
Is that already included in there, isn't it?
Do you need that in the resolution?
Need something extra in here?
I'm certain, I think, I spoke to the CEO about it,
Yeah.
Rob, and she said we should ask council,
Yeah.
would you release us to do that? I don't know if you need to.
So we've got to put a fifth dot point in, is that what we're suggesting? Yeah, how would we word it? Approve council staff to liaise with relative stakeholders, or does that work for you?
Key agencies.
Authorise.
So will it be authorised the CEO or delegate, can't direct staff, CEO or delegate to engage with the relevant stakeholders to progress this initiative?
State agencies.
Stakeholders, including state agencies, to progress this initiative? I think that's broad enough, isn't it?
All right.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, so the mover and the second are happy with that change? No, anyone want to speak for or against, or? Okay, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour, 5-0.
Good one. Thanks, Ruben. Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
Page 120.
I'm just thinking about what page? 120. Oh, this one, yes.
L11, Outback Masters. Councillor Burkett.
I'm willing to move it. I just want to ask a question first, Mr Mayor. The request these from the Outback Golf Masters was a little bit more. Is there it's got to fit under a certain amount? Is that? I thought I read that. Was it $20,000 total they requested first?
They did, yes.
Yeah.
And council's resolution was to make a counter offer of $5,000, which they've accepted.
Yeah.
Together with in-kind assistance to the golf club in Roma.
And they were happy with that?
As we did last time. And this report is about changing the date.
Yeah.
To, instead of the 25th and 26th of June, to the 18th and 19th of June.
Doesn't clash, yeah.
So it makes us, I think, the first stop.
No, exactly, yeah. No, all good. I'm happy to move that council amend resolution number OM/05.2021/13 to read as follows. 1. Propose a counter offer to Golf Australia to the amount of $5,000 in support of the Outback Golf Masters event to be held in Roma on the 18th and 19th of June 2022. 2. Allocate $5,000 in the 2021-2022 sponsorship budget for the Outback Golf Masters event to be held in Roma on the 18th and 19th of June 2022. 3. Allocate $10,000 for in-kind assistance to Roma Golf Club in support of the event. 4. Upon Golf Australia's acceptance of the counteroffer, authorise the Chief Executive Officer, CEO to sign the Outback Queensland Masters Roma event agreement outlining both Gulf Australia's and the Maranoa Regional Council's commitment for the event, including acknowledgement of the council's sponsorship. And 5, approve the Roma reveal logo, branding and website to be used in promotional material as outlined in the event agreement.
Second, Councillor Edwards. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it? Councillor Burkett.
I think it's a great event, and the Roma Golf Club should be commended on sourcing this carnival. It's created a lot of exposure the last few events, and that one going at the moment seems to be a huge success. So I commend the guys once again for landing this.
Does anyone else wish to speak to the motion? I'll certainly like to commend, Roma Golf Club and all the volunteers on everything they do out there, and we wish them well if we can wrap this up and get it to happen. And I hope that the in-kind assistance supports Roma Golf Club, because on behalf of council, I'd really like to commend them, what they do as a sporting group in the community. Okay, anyone else wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Item L12, Country University Centre Maranoa Training Room Hire, Information and Fee Schedule.
I'll have a conflict, which I didn't see until now. Shows I don't look at my agenda when I read the papers. I'll just go through the papers. Cal, if I can declare an interest, please. It's L12. The report title is Country University's Centre Maranoa Training Room. Training room hire, information and fee schedule. The declaring councillor is myself. The related party is the Country University Centre Maranoa Proprietary Limited. The particulars of the interest are, I'm a chair and non-executive director of C.6 Maranoa. Prescribed conflict of interest. And the action, of course, is I'll leave the room while it's discussed and voted on.
Councillor O'Neill has left the room. I've got a question on this one. L12, Country University Centre Maranoa Training Room Hire, Information and Fee Schedule. My question is, obviously it used to be part of the hub, and we had the ability for the meeting room to be, or a meeting room to be, obviously for non-profit groups and so forth. The fee that's in here, how does that correlate to what it was, or if you don't have the information, happy to lay it on the table till we can get that. Like for instance, and I note here it's got no charges applied to ACNC registered organisations, but are all non-for-profits registered like that, or only some of them are registered like that? Is that where they've got an actual federal government, non-for-profit category rather than just an incorporated body or something?
Mr Mayor, I did have a look at what the ACNC registered organisation stood for, and it's the Australian Government Registered Australian Charities and Not-for-Profit Commission. I don't know the answer as to whether everything that council would class as a not-for-profit is actually part of this register. That is something that I can look at, though.
So I don't, from my memory, you've actually got to strive to get that ACN. So that's actually limiting the amount of just non-for-profit incorporated bodies that can do it. So that's one question I've got. And the second one is to do with the, so what I'm saying is, did we just allow non-for-profits to, did we have a fee waiver, or did we have something that we did if
Yes, Mr Mayor. So previously, when council looked after, when it was the community hub and the training room was available there, not-for-profit organisations could use that free of charge.
So my question is, this could be more onerous than just non-for-profits, what they've got here. And the second thing is, what about the, well, that would take out a lot of people that could just book it and not charge. And then the second question, like as far as if it was a business or whatever, how do the other fees connect to what council used to charge approximately?
Yeah, previously that space was primarily used by not-for-profits, which would have been free of charge. But what I can do is I can have a look at the register and just maybe put in there a few of the common users that used to use it free of charge and when council managed that space. So they'd be organisations like the Roma Show Society were a big user. Alcoholics Anonymous were a big user of that space, and I can put those in the register and see whether or not they've got the the requirements, or whether they'd fall under that classification of ACNC registration.
Because the other question is, if we've got an input into this, could we just say it should be non-for-profits rather than ACN, rather than actual charities? Because that's a pretty hard bar to get to.
The council can put that stipulation. It was a requirement in the council resolution when council agreed to CUC taking on that space. There was a requirement there that a community meeting room be developed, and that was to make sure that there was still a space available. So it's not going to be the training room as we knew it.
No,
They've developed a new space. But council can definitely put a requirement there. It is in the lease that the trustee leasee must submit higher rates to council for approval. So council does have, can say that they're not quite happy with requiring that registration and just say any not-for-profits.
Yeah, because the standard would be just a non-for-profit that's registered, like as in an incorporated body or something. Councillor Hancock?
Yeah, I agree with you, Mr Mayor. I believe that ACNC registration is actually about a tax benefit that for the, if you donate to them, and it's about that tax benefit. So I think that would not be incorporating a lot of our not-for-profits at all. My question is that what have they been doing between when we gave them the lease to now? What's been happening?
During that time, any community groups that would have previously used that training room being referred, they've been using either the Ernest Brock room or the auditorium.
So nobody's been using the new developed training room.
That training room wasn't developed straight away. I don't believe it was. So they're not using the training room that as we knew it. They were creating a new room. But this has only recently come in regard to fees. So I would think that no one's been using it. No, not-for-profits have been using it. They've been going to alternative spaces. And I know a lot of the previous users that use that space a lot have been in the Ernest Brock room.
Councillor McMullen?
Mr Mayor, I'm just getting a little confused. This room we're talking about is not the new meeting room, is it? It's the original meeting room.
No, it's a new meeting room that's been developed over there.
That's got nothing to do with CUC.
They take the bookings.
It is actually.
Bookings? Yeah. Okay, but did we ever say we were going to hire it out?
No,
It's been free of charge.
through you, Mr Mayor, that CUC managed that space. You need to get through their security systems and whatever to get into that space. So it's not, council's not hiring that space out. There is a requirement that CUC
separate
would.
room. No,
Yeah.
no, I thought, I'll stand correcting, but the new one that I call where we opened 2 offices into one was not, you didn't access CUC to get to it.
Originally, I thought we did talk about that.
Anyway, you don't go through CUC to get to that room.
You go through the front
Yes,
door.
you
But
go
that's not
through the door.
CUC. They haven't got the front door, have they?
Yes, they, through you, Mr
They
Mayor,
got the
yes, they
front door.
do, yes. It's all under their own security system. They have that whole
Okay.
area, yeah.
Well, that's where I
Yeah.
was getting mixed.
And there was a stipulation in the resolution where council agreed to them taking on that space, that they would create another space that would be available for community groups, so they didn't lose that meeting
Council's done
space.
that, haven't we?
Yes.
Yeah. So they want to now hire it out.
No. So probably the stumbling block from my point of view, they just haven't got not-for-profits. They've got ACNC, which is an actual registered charity, which is pretty hard to get. So a lot of the non-for-profits, the average person in the community would say is a non-for-profit incorporated body, would not be able to get that. So that's why I think we need to look at it and say it should be just a standard non-for-profit, like an incorporated body or something like that. And so as far as I understood, the meeting room was turned into a break area.
Yeah.
And then they've made the other one, and this is that if it's a commercial entity, they can charge a fee for it.
Well, the
or-
other one, what the additional?
Yeah, for the new one.
Okay.
But also, if it was instead of ACNC a non-for-profit, like an incorporated body, any of those sort of things, then it would be open to everyone. So that's a very high bar to jump to, this one is, I
So,
think.
yeah, I see, I'm getting my head around a bit. So no charges apply to ACNC. Well, probably wouldn't be any charging anyone, would we?
No, well, what I'm saying is, most, like, non-for-profit sporting bodies, none of them are ACNC.
No, but they said they'd get in for free. But if they're not going to charge ACNC people, who would we be charging?
Businesses.
No, they haven't got anything about,
Businesses.
yeah, no.
They can charge a business.
Well, a business would be ACNC, wouldn't it?
No.
No.
So say I won't use that. I'll say a mental health person wants to just hire a room.
Yeah.
They could go and do that. That's actually a business,
Yeah.
and they would get charged. But if it's a not-for-profit group, they wouldn't get charged.
No, that's right. But ACNC, they're not non-for-profit.
Yeah, no, that is actually a federal government charity,
Oh, okay.
right? Registered charity and it's, Councillor Hancock's right, it's for taxation. So, for instance, Roma Golf Club couldn't come and hire it for free at the moment the way it is in here, right? Because they're not ACNC registered, right? So, but I think my feeling is it just should be instead of ACNC, it should be non-for-profit in there, and that would solve where everyone would be able to have a go at it. Councillor Taylor?
We're talking about the same room. Like it's either they hire it for not-for-profits can use it, or they can hire it out. So it's the same room.
Yep.
So would preference be given to not-for-profit?
It says, I think it says that, I think they take precedent, like if there's a.
Do they?
Yeah.
Well, like the
Where does it say
AAs
that?
use it on a very regular.
I mean, if the CUC people want to use it, they've got
Yeah, but
preference.
Yeah, but shouldn't it be the not-for-profits get the preference? Because, for example, who uses it all the time?
Yeah.
Well, no one is at the moment because
Well-
they've changed.
Yeah, well, see, they shouldn't have had to have been even moved out.
Mayor
Sentence on number 4 for me. I'm gonna
Yeah.
have to go.
Yeah.
I've just got I don't know this word, whether it's number 4 on the facility hire terms and conditions. Nothing in the venue hire agreement confers to the hire or any rights of the tenant and such as expressly negative. Is that typo? Negatived.
Should be negated or something.
Well,
like
yeah,
that.
negated or the relationship between city mayor and the hire license. You just thought I was a plumber, Jeffrey, eh?
Aye.
I'm a wordsmith.
Mr Mayor, can I just ask Manager Tenure, we did have a list of all of the not-for-profit who were previously using the facility before we signed this
yeah.
list, and there was quite a substantial number of local groups that were using it on a regular and irregular basis, didn't we?
Yeah, that is true. So if council wants to ensure that those same organisations, what council could look at doing is saying that council wishes to make sure that all not-for-profit or community organisations, and that council can provide a list of all known not-for-profit community organisations within the Maranoa region. And that would also take away any confusion in the future when someone goes to book and there's maybe confusion about whether or not they're a not-for-profit. We can provide a list.
So, yeah. So, yeah, do we need to lay it on the table so you could work out what the fees used to be for that when we were charging
What I
it?
can do is I can work out some officers' recommendations, some review, some wording that I think will take into account all the concerns that councils have raised.
Because my question is, if it was the meeting room when it was the hub and it's a meeting room now, I would not like to see that even someone using it as a meeting room that's paying would be paying a lot more for it than they used to.
Yep.
Because, you know, it was community hub originally, and I don't think that would be CUC's intention, but I think we need to check that. And the other thing is whether it could just be for all non-for-profits. We could give them a list, but new ones come along and they go, yeah, we're an incorporated body, we're non-for-profit. But
Can I just, Mr.
yeah.
Mayor, can I just suggest something? So on that thing there, like if they put the organisation and then they don't put ABN and they don't put ACNC registered, well, that obviously means they're just a not-for-profit. I mean, if they don't fill it out, they're not obliged to fill that out, are they? You know what I mean? On that application form. So is that where it's coming from, the initial information? So page 163, so when they contact, if they don't have an ABN, they don't have an ACNC registered and they're just an organisation, therefore they'd just be a not-for-profit, or, you know, you'd assume that anyway, by default.
Yes. Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. We can have a talk to Country University Centre just in regard to clarifying. So that those facility hire fees there, I mean, the way I read it, that you either pay your fee or you're ACNC registered. So we can word something up that clarifies that it's all not-for-profits to take any confusion out. Because the way it reads now, you either not pay if you're an ACNC registered organisation, or you do pay.
Yeah, and I think we...
Yeah, but anyway, it doesn't matter
But we
which way
can
you do
work
it, but
something out.
I just think if you didn't fill that out, if you just put, you know, some club there, Inc., and you didn't fill anything else out, well, therefore you'd just be a not-for-profit. But not a lot of people know that.
No, and I think the way that I've read it on page 160, it's either you pay or you're an ACNC, whereas I think the ACNC should be removed and it should be non-for-profit.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, not-for-profit.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it would sort itself out.
And then the default position on that is then they can be ACNC registered or something,
Well,
it doesn't matter.
Well, they are a non-for-profit then, aren't they?
Still
So,
are a not-for-profit.
yeah, most of them would be, I reckon.
So we're laying on the table.
Do you need a bit of time, lay it on the table?
That's fine.
Righto. I'll move to lay it on the table to later in the meeting. All those in favour? That is 7-0. No, 7.
7-0.
Brooke has got to go to an appointment, so. Okay,
Are we done?
Confidential?
Hmm?
Confidential.
we might do some conflicts if we've got some, eh? Do we have any conflicts there, Kel? Councillor Edwards, did you want to do conflicts?
Yep.
So we can go into close?
Yep. I've got to declare a conflict in item C4, description applications for conversion of tenure, lot 3 on BD 21 and lot 5 on BDR 22. Lot 8 on K43, declaring Councillor Mark Edwards, person with the interest, a related party, close associate, other relationship, is myself and the entity Leichhardt Group. Particulars of interest, my employer Leichhardt Group has a professional relationship with the applicant which cannot be divulged for professional reasons. Type of conflict, declarable conflict of interest, and the action is I'll leave the room while the matter is discussed and voted on.
Okay, LC.5 Request for an internal review application. Well, I've declared this before, I think. So basically, I'm just on LC.5. I'll be declaring a conflict, which I've done before, and I'll be leaving the room. Okay. Any others? No other conflicts, councillors?
Well, yeah, I suppose when Councillor Ladbrook gets back, has he got any?
No, not by the look of it. Okay, so do we have someone to move into close?
Mayor, I just want, can we get a bit of an ETA on the budget documents? The meeting's scheduled for 2 p.m. It'd be nice to understand how much time we have.
Yeah, I'd say we'd be putting that back, that by the look of it, but we can do that, yes, of course. Yeah, well, does someone want to just,
We'll move into.
yeah, we'll move into closed and then someone can go and do that.
But then you'll have to come out of close to adjourn the meeting if we get the papers. Or-
We'll have to come in and close.
They're not ready,
We'll be
okay.
doing it now.
We'd have
Well,
to
we've got
close-
lunch and-
We'd have to close.
We can adjourn for lunch anyway without going out of closed.
So if we're going to read the papers, we'd have to close it.
Yeah, I think we can just adjourn this meeting and then read the papers and then have the other meeting, you know, so. Okay, do we have anyone to move into closed? Councillor Hancock.
In accordance with the provisions of section 254J3 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, the council resolved to close the meeting to the public to discuss confidential items that its councillors consider it necessary to close the meeting. In accordance with section 254J5, the Local Government Regulation 2012, the following table provides the matters to be discussed, an overview of what is to be discussed while the meeting is closed. Agenda items. C1, application for conversion of tenure lot 2 on WAR 40. C2, application for conversion of tenure lot 5 on BDR 80. C3, application for conversion of tenure lot 6 on BDR 59. C4, applications for conversion of tenure on lot 3 on BDR 21 and lot 5 on BDR 22 and lot 8 on KE 43. C5, historic grain shed. And I've got them here, Cal. Do you want me to? Yep. LC.1, commencement of legal proceedings. LC.2, extension of Sunrise Road, Hodgson. LC.3, variation to funding agreement, QFPI round 2.2. LC.4, financial assistant grants methodology review, Western Queensland Alliance of Councils, WQAC draft submission. And LC.5, request for internal review, application for permanent road closure, section of road adjoining lot 31 on SP 178386. C6 Planning Consultancy.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Burkett, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0. Okay, I'd like to move that we adjourn the meeting till a future time.
Open it first, have we?
No.
Oh, this one's already.
Yeah. We adjourn the ordinary meeting till a future time to allow for us to open, allow for us to open the budget meeting and conduct the budget meeting this afternoon. First. We adjourn the meeting to, so we'll say the ordinary meeting? Yeah. The ordinary meeting So I move that we adjourn the ordinary meeting to a future time to allow for council to open the budget meeting, conduct the budget meeting first.
It
Do we-
should be that council adjourn the ordinary meeting.
That council, I'm happy with that. Have we got a seconder? Councillor McMullen, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour? Okay, 7-0. I will now adjourn the ordinary meeting. Okay, we are resuming the ordinary meeting from the 28th of July 2021 on the 28th of July at 6:44 p.m. Thank you for your attendance, councillors. C1, application for conversion of tenure on Lot 2 on WAR 40. Councillor Hancock.
I move that council advise the Department of Resources that it offers no objection to the conversion of GHPL 36/7251 over Lot 2 on WAR 40 to freehold tenure on the condition that the applicant ensures the constructed sections of Deepwater Road that runs adjacent to the property are currently contained fully within the dedicated road reserve.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Burkett, any opposition? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour, 9-0. C2, application for conversion of tenure Lot 5 on BDR 80. Did anyone have a conflict in any of those?
C3.
Coming up.
Councillor O'Neill.
I move the council advise the Department of Resources that it offers no objection to the conversion of GHPL 367849 over Lot 5 of BDR 80 to freehold tenure on the condition that applicant ensures the constructed sections of Mount Moffat Road that runs adjacent to the property are currently contained fully within the dedicated road reserve, and further, it would offer no objection should the applicant wish to permanently close the section of road reserve that dissects the middle of Lot 5 on BDR 80.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor McMullen, any opposition? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour, 9-0. C3, application for conversion of tenure on Lot 6 on BDR 59. So anyone have a conflict on this one?
C4.
C4. Okay, Councillor McMullen.
Mr Mayor, I move that council advise the Department of Resources that it offers no objection to the conversion of GHPL 36-7850 over Lot 6 on BDR 59 to freehold tenure on the condition that the applicant ensures the construction sections of the Mount Moffat, Farmley and Merivale roads that run adjacent to the property are currently contained fully within the dedicated road reserve.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Ladbrook. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to vote. All those in favour, 9-0. Okay, moving on to C4, applications for conversion of tenure Lot 3 on BDR 21 and Lot 5 on BDR 22, Lot 8 on KE 43. And Councillor Edwards has left the room. Okay, Councillor Burkett.
I'd like to move the council advise the Department of Resources that it offers, 1, no objection to the conversion of GHPL 36/7330 over Lot 3 on BDR 21 and Lot 5 on BDR 22 on the condition that the applicant A, ensures the constructed sections of Hoganthella Road that run adjacent to the property are currently contained fully within the dedicated road reserve, and B, secure permanent access to Lot 3 on BDR 21. 2, no objection to conversion of GHPL 36/7722 over Lot 8 on KE 43 on the condition that the applicant ensures the constructed sections of Oakwood Road that run adjacent to the property are currently contained fully within the dedicated road reserve.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Taylor. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to vote. All those in favour, 8-0. C5, historic grain shed. I'd like to move.
We got an email in. Did you?
Yeah, I've got it here, and it might even be up here too. Okay, that's it there. Yep. I'd like to move that council authorise the chief executive officer or delegate to commence formal negotiations with Queensland Rail in regard to the acquisition of Lot 6 on SP 117266. 2, formally write to Grain Corp Limited and ask that any action to demolish the grain shed located on this site be delayed for a period of 6 months. 3, gather local history relating to the grain shed and contact the Queensland Rail historian and request an assessment of the historical significance of the shed. Just to clarify that, do we need to put anything in there that I could also make contact with Grain Corp?
With a letter.
Yeah.
Well, that's council formally right.
Righto, okay. Righto, we've got a seconder. Councillor Burkett, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Okay, moving on to
59.
page 59, thank you. C.6 Planning Consultancy. Councillor Taylor.
I'd like to move that council authorise the chief executive officer to enter into the agreement presented.
The seconder, Councillor O'Neill. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. What's next, Kel? Confidential? Late confidential.
Were we waiting for information for this one?
We got it. Come here and inspect it.
There was some other information I was asking about. We were going to find out.
Vote on the table.
Move we lay it on the table to the next meeting. All those in favour?
But do the
9-0.
do the officers know what more information they need to get for you?
Probably can't provide more than what we've sort of said in the day. We've taken advice from the debt recovery and they've spoken to legal,
So what I'm interested in getting an opinion of our chances of succeeding if we start spending the money, and the other thing with debt recovery, if it's not successful, are we paying for it? So yeah, they're the questions for the next meeting. Basically, yeah, because I believe there's a lot more to this, and also, are they financial? You know, like, is there any history? Because you can even get opinions about certain entities to see whether they're, financial. Okay, so that's LC1. Moving on to LC2.
Did we take the vote in the end?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. 9-0 to lay it on the table till the next meeting. Okay, LC2, page 7. LC2 extension of Sunrise Road, Hodgson. Councillor McMullen.
Mr Mayor, I'll move that council endorse an amendment to council's rural road register to extend the current length of Sunrise Road from 0.361 kilometres to 1.626 kilometres. 2, undertake works on Sunrise Road to construct to a rural access secondary standard as per council's road network design standard policy. 3, add the upgrade of Sunrise Road to council's capital work request register for consideration as part of future budget deliberations.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Guthrie, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Okay, LC3, variation to funding agreement, QFPI, round 2.2. Do we have a mover? Councillor Edwards.
I'll move that council authorise the chief executive officer to execute the deed of variation to the Queensland Feral Pest Initiative 2.2 Pests Without Borders project.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Burkett. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Okay, moving on to LC4, Financial Assistance Grants Methodology Review, Western Queensland Alliance of Councils, draft submission. Councillor Hancock.
I move that council receive and note the contents of this report and the Western Queensland Alliance of Councils draft submission.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor McMullen, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. LC.5, this is one where I think I have a conflict. Yeah. Is that correct? Yep, I'll be leaving the room. Deputy Mayor, if you could take over.
Okay, the mayor's left the room. Ooh. Item LC5, request for internal review, application for permanent road closure, section of road adjoining lot 31 on SP 178386. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor O'Neill.
I'll move the council receive and note the results of the internal review.
Seconder, please. Councillor Edwards. Any opposition to the motion? Anyone want to speak for or against? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour, 8-0.
Yes, we do have, what was it? Sorry, Cal? Yeah.
I think Deputy Director said we might add information.
We do have information on,
About the,
Glendon.
oh, I was actually L7. Oh, sorry, I mean, L8, I was going to
so we do have information on L12.
What about L8 was laid on the table?
Have we got that information?
Council, that information circulated there, just.
What's next on your agenda? L7.
Just laid on the table.
Oh, security.
I'll move we lay that on the table until the next meeting of council.
Hang on. Which one's this? I'll just make sure I haven't got a conflict.
It's the aviation screening one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You've asked for, you actually
Yeah.
asked for.
Okay. All those in favour? 9-0.
And then L8 laid on the table as well.
We have 3 on the table, I think.
Requested all the extra information.
Will that just come through?
What are we talking here, ladies?
This was the one that Wendy wanted to have the actual.
Oh, yeah, about the different tenders.
So what's next for you?
L8.
L8, 59.
We just got an email, Mr Mayor.
So everyone's got that?
Yep,
You have,
it was what councillor Taylor wanted.
So no one needs any more information? Okay, L.8 Tender 21040 Aggregate Crushing Campaign at Roma Quarry.
Mayor,
We already have
we
a,
had mover and a second, and actually we
Did we? Righto, okay.
voted on it too, didn't we?
Righto, well anyway, that's the title.
I must have just wrote it down in anticipation.
No, we definitely didn't vote on it.
Okay.
We laid it on the table. Anyway, I've called the item number, so we have a mover and a second. Are they both happy to move and second that?
Yep.
Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Okay, Kel, what's next for you?
I don't think we got the information.
yeah, we do. Yeah.
2:23 this afternoon.
Which one was that?
L12.
What's the CUC one?
Which I've got a conflict on a while ago.
Okay, do we have a mover? Councillor Hancock.
I move that Council 1 advise the Country University.
Excuse me, I'll just call the title. L12, Country University Centre Maranoa, Training Room, Hire, Information and Fee Schedule. Please go ahead, Councillor Hancock.
I move that Council 1 advise the Country University Centre Maranoa that it is Council's expectation that all for not-for-profit entities that all not-for-profit entities that would have been previously entitled to free use of their meeting space when the building was operated as a community hub will continue to be entitled to free use of the meeting room. Not-for-profit entities include charities and incorporated organisations. Where there is an ambiguity as to a local organisation's not-for-profit status, it must be referred to council for decision. 2, approve the fee schedule of $22 per hour or $150 per day for all hirers that do not fit within the not-for-profit category.
So the other question I did have was, what was it like before, if we hired it before?
So I assumed, you asked the officer that, when I read this, when it come through, I assumed that the officer had looked at that and that is in line with what we did before, because you did ask that question, so that's why I assumed that.
Maybe, I'm happy with this motion, but maybe we could check that as well. Is that all right for future? Okay, we have a seconder, Councillor Taylor. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0.
That it?
Any others, Kel? That's it? Well, it's very good.
That's all we can do.
Is this the two?
That
That was it?
There's only two for next meeting, I think. So.
Okay, well, I'll close the meeting if there's no further business. Councillors, it's 7 o'clock on the dot.